It's hard to believe I'm finally here. There are places in your life that you are destined to fall in love with. Some you happen to stumble across along the way, and some you always knew about. For me, Nepal was the latter, a place that, long before I ever stepped foot in, I knew was a place that I would adore. This was fate. To come here on my first trip abroad since the pandemic began, after 2 or 3 years of no real travel, it felt right. In March of 2022, this was where I was meant to be. This is the story of my trip through Nepal, through the crazy, chaotic streets of Kathmandu, and up to the mind-altering, life-changing heights of the tallest, most iconic mountains in the world.
This is what I came here for. Test myself.
As I went, I did what I do best. I filmed, I took photos, and I wrote. These are my notes from Nepal.
Welcome to Kathmandu, Nepal. I can't believe I'm actually saying that. After 2 long years of not really traveling with the pandemic, it feels amazing to finally be here, you know? Like, I've been dreaming about this place for a long, long time. It feels a bit surreal. I'm gonna be here for the next 6 weeks, quite a long time. As you can see, it's a little bit it's a little bit chaotic. Quite an intense place already. Before we get started, I need to go get my mate Ben from the airport. I didn't recognise you with the long hair, without the long hair. How's it going? Yeah, good to see you. You too, buddy. Who would have thought we'd be meeting in Kathmandu?
Kathmandu after all this time, yeah.
Nice. How was your flight?
Ben is one of my best friends. We go back years. We kind of started our careers together, working as filmmakers and cameramen. We've driven around sleeping in camper vans and climbed a fair few mountains together too. This was the first time I'd seen him in over a year and a half.
Yeah, because I'd moved to Indonesia and then we'd had the pandemic, it was like our first time catching up in person for like a year and a half. So how was that to catch up and actually get to meet up again?
Horrible. Worst part of the trip, to be honest.
Great.
Yeah.
The thing about Ben is, you can't help but like the guy.
Brilliant, man. Nice one.
That much was clear the moment we stepped foot on the streets of Tamil.
Nice. Okay.
We're just going to go meet a friend.
Yeah. See you. So this is like proper backpacking tourist central. We look like backpackers and tourists and are getting effectively targeted, as you can see. Ben's made 1 million friends already.
You're used to this, dude. You live in
I think that's one of the main things, isn't it? Like in Europe, there's that you would never even look at a stranger,
No.
let alone like walk up to them, put your arm around them.
Take a picture. Yeah.
And it's so difficult to say no to people.
Yeah. And also, not only because when you say no, they just go, yeah, but they listen.
There's always a way.
Yeah.
Managing to squirrel away, we found ourselves a rooftop and set to catching up over a year's worth of stories.
He gained my trust.
You did, yeah.
He really did a good job, and I was
Yeah.
like, I never fall for this shit.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, fuck.
That's awesome.
The
That's
boys-
kind of awesome, really.
Boys done good.
Yeah.
As the sun set, we watched the crows flying over the jagged skyline as all turned orange. I remember looking up at the distant hills that surround the city, and beyond that, in the very distant haze, my first glimpse of the Himalaya.
What we just spotted, Josh?
My first Himalayan peaks that I've ever seen in my life. Oh shit, that's cool.
I don't know if you can quite make it. Oh, you can just make it out, actually.
Wow.
Literally a dream come true, eh?
That was a dream come true for years and years and years and years. We would be in the mountains soon enough, but for now, Kathmandu had us firmly in its grasp.
Living in Kathmandu is an adventure, I would say. It's chaotic and overwhelming at times. But then there is a sense of warmth and comfort that you get right when you step into the city. It's a very unique mixture of religion, culture, history.
You got done there, mate.
Part of the experience, bro.
I heard about these guys. They come up and like mark you, and then you have to
pay 'em, yeah.
Let me see. Yes. Day 2, I guess,
Day 2.
in Kathmandu,
Day 2.
and we are just walking around, just going to explore. Basically, it's a really like photographic, visually beautiful city. What are you doing? Photos, bit of video?
Yeah, just enjoying myself, to be honest.
Yeah, man.
Giving the money away for free. Oh, I'm joking.
End up with no money left at the end of day 2.
Yeah, just so blessed though.
Nothing quite prepares you for this place. For the next 2 days, me and Ben did our best to navigate this mandala of chaos.
Busy, hectic, chaos, overstimulation are all words that come to mind when I think about walking around Kathmandu for the first time.
We set off down the winding urban canyons, a little like the Himalayan valleys we would soon see. Golden light poured into concrete crevices, but instead of a raging torrent of water, it was a relentless flow of people and traffic.
The people walk slowly in other cities of Nepal, but if you see in the Kathmandu, they walk so fast because it is a city for the work, city for the progress, city for the struggle.
So people from the mountain regions or people from the hilly regions or the flatlands, from everywhere they like to come here in Kathmandu for like doing business things, or if you like to invest in some other things. Kathmandu is the center of Nepal.
That's true. This is where business is done. On every street you'll find mothers and aunts selling their fruit and veg, while rickshaw drivers zip about with precious cargo, sometimes human, sometimes not. Sparks fly and all manner of items grow legs to go walking in the streets. Silhouettes dance amongst bamboo scaffolding high in the sky. Locksmiths clang and file the day slowly down. These streets surge and ride with an addictive buzz of activity. The whole thing is maintained and fueled by an army of street food vendors positioned on every corner.
Thank you. Thank you. Thoughts on that?
That's good. Yeah.
How much was it? 20p?
20p each, yeah.
Can't argue with that.
Cannot argue with that.
I savoured the moments you got to catch your breath here, because they were few and far between. It's a living organism, this place. Miles and miles of cabling sprawl out between buildings, like a fungus. A complicated mess that nobody is quite sure how to untangle, or how it got there in the first place. It's a lot like the city itself, I guess.
We know that we want to be very developed. We know that we want to have economic progress in this country. We know how we want to be, but we don't know how to approach that destination.
In amongst the old town, you can still dive and duck through alleyways that lead out through to the Bahals, the old traditional squares where families lived in close proximity before the city consumed itself and sprawled out into the dense concrete mess that it is today.
This is UNESCO listed cultural capital. You know, UNESCO has listed 7 heritage from Kathmandu.
So Kathmandu has been ruled by many kings and rulers since centuries, right? So every king during their era has built palaces and temples and shrines which has stood by till this date. It might have been renovated, but then it's still there. Like the temples that you see are centuries old.
So we're now in Durbar Square. It's not just a bunch of really old buildings. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it's like the old royal square in front of the old royal palace. Quite an important place. I'm just like looking at some of these buildings. They are so old. Look at this.
The ancient temples and monuments in Durbar Square hint at forgotten kingdoms and ancient trade, and even more recent shockwaves from 2015. 7 years on from the worst earthquake in Nepal since 1934, you could still see the damage wrought. Some of the pagodas are wrapped in scaffolding, and large timber beams prop up whole walls, offering no reassurance whatsoever.
You'll see how, even without earthquakes, this city's quite ramshambled together, isn't it? So I imagine it was quite devastating.
Yeah, it was like 7.8 or 7.9, so...
Well, I mean, that would like rattle anywhere, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Even regardless of how well.
Talking about earthquake just gives me goosebumps till date, and I think it has left a big traumatic impact to everybody who was here during that time.
Above all else, and somewhat surprisingly for me, it was the religion that left the deepest impression.
The prominence of religion in Kathmandu was I always enjoy seeing that. I think it is so different to how we experience life in the UK, where it's almost dying. It's almost like not fashionable to be religious in a way, which is curious. But I think Kathmandu, yeah, it is woven into everyday life. There's little shrines everywhere for everything.
We value religion really deeply, and Nepalis are very God-fearing, and we are very devoted. And in our daily ritual also, like we always pray to the God, especially the elderlies. The elder generation, they have a routine of going to the temples near their house and doing their worship, their prayers.
I'm used to there being no God, no spirits or higher body to answer to, yet here it was impossible to ignore. Every corner has its deity, its statue, its place of worship. And sometimes those deities go wandering through the streets.
We have festivals all year around. Like every month there is a new festival, there is a new Jatra, right?
The streets of Kathmandu are often quiet first thing in the morning. But not for long. It starts with the drums and clash of cymbals. Right on cue, trumpeters and flutists enter stage left. More and more musicians heed the call. Elder women peer out from their watchtowers to see what all the commotion is about. The raucous drummers enter the temple of Janabaha, awakening the god Seto Machindranath from his slumber. This is the beginning of the Seto Machindranath Jatra, a 3-day festival in which the god will travel around the city, visiting the people to bless them with happiness and a long life. Revered and worshipped by both Hindus and Buddhists, Seto Machindranath represents the harmonious coexistence within Kathmandu.
So if we talk particularly about Kathmandu, we have unity in diversity. Kathmandu got like all kinds of religious people, and people here are quite religious because it have been followed from our ancestor time to till now.
There's a palpable excitement as the god is hoisted above the shoulders of his most devoted followers and ushered out of the temple, followed by a stream of phones and video cameras. Placed in a portable shrine, the procession has begun. Vying for a glimpse and a better position, the crowd jolts and jostles along as it squeezes through the narrow arteries of Kathmandu. I realised that this is a big deal for everyone.
They think about 21st century, they think about 22nd century, but still they don't forget to carry on their own culture. The Newari culture, if you go to the different Jatras in Kathmandu, these are the Jatras carried by the local people themselves. They are getting some support from the government, but actually the local people themselves are protecting their cultural heritage.
Young and old, it feels as if the whole city has turned out to see their god. Some work themselves into a frenzy, while others stand respectfully to the side as he glides past. The portable shrine eases out of the old town amongst a sea of people. Seto Machindranath will soon be transferred to a chariot and continue his journey around Kathmandu. Exhausted, I cannot follow any longer. I'm not ashamed to admit that coming to Kathmandu, I had little grasp about the history and the culture. I mean, that's partly why you travel, right? To learn about these places that you're visiting.
We're at the aptly named Monkey Temple. Feels like everywhere, every city, every country in Asia has to have a monkey temple.
We were saying this morning, very Western thing to do is go and see monkeys in a temple.
This is like the touristy thing to do, right? We're kind of ticking it all off. And we've also got prayer wheels over here. Ben?
Oh yeah, of course,
I
sorry.
think you've got to do the honours.
To be honest.
Yes, mate. That's it. That's the
Just
one.
a pro, you know.
Arriving at the Monkey Temple, we were naive. You know, just classic tourists doing what tourists do.
Easy.
It's a lot of steps, mate.
Why is it so steep?
It's so steep.
You slog up the stairs, look at the amazing view, and then get accosted by someone else after your money. Between Ben's new friend and the crying baby, you find yourself wondering why you bothered to come to these tourist hotspots.
Rays of lightning just to protect the whole crater.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And there it is.
I knew it was coming. Learned some stuff though.
Took about 10 minutes of the whole history of
Grafted.
Nepal,
Yeah.
but you got there in the end.
Yeah.
How much did he want? $20?
$20, 2,000 rupees.
That's quite a lot.
No. That's right.
How much did you give?
200.
Yeah. You did learn some stuff though.
Yeah, yeah. That was a fair exchange.
No, he. To be fair, I was learning some stuff just eavesdropping.
For free.
Yeah, yeah. Funny enough.
It's true. You do learn stuff, even when you weren't necessarily looking for it. For example, it's believed that the wind will carry these mantras and prayers inscribed on the flags to spread the positive energy and blessings to surrounding areas, promoting peace, compassion, strength, and wisdom. I was fascinated by the monk who paced around and around and around all morning. We all walked in this clockwise direction, thought to symbolise the practitioner's journey from ignorance to wisdom, from confusion to enlightenment. The faithful and the tourists intermingle, shuffling around, spinning the prayer wheels. As they spin, the prayers and mantras inscribed on these wheels are activated, blessing whoever has spun them. Sometimes, it's probably the monkeys who find us the entertaining ones. Monkeys are considered to be sacred up here, so it's a smart place for them to hang out. True to form, they remain tricky customers.
Oh, that's the thing with those monkeys. Proper horrible little bastards. Look at him.
The longer you spend in a place like this, the more fascinating it is. Kathmandu has a funny way of pulling you in. Yes, these are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, but they're living, breathing temples too. You're not just looking at artifacts in a museum, pondering over things that took place a very long time ago. You're part of that time and that place in that moment. You feel that culture with all your senses in real time.
Leaving the temple, and again, that was quite a full-on experience, wasn't it?
Yes. As with Nepal, Kathmandu seems to be.
Everywhere you look, there's something happening, and you just want to film and take photos of everything, really. And we learnt a bit, which is great. You could literally spend hours in one of these places.
Yeah.
And there's just so much.
I could honestly, not even hours. I think I could photograph like the monkeys there, and then I could photograph the temple and the people for like days at a time each.
Yeah.
Or even film them. Yeah.
And that's just one spot.
I hadn't really done a whole lot of street photography before we went to Kathmandu, but as soon as we got there, you could see immediately it was like an absolute dream for shooting things like that. Just little moments happening everywhere.
There are certain cities that naturally lend themselves to the craft of photography. Everywhere we pointed our lens, somehow there was a perfect frame. The Buddhist monk doing his rounds, the busy streets and the garlic man, the faces and the faceless.
From the nature of the way the architecture was, it's just like constantly little interesting pools of light streaming everywhere and bouncing off things and making interesting scenes form themselves in front of your eyes almost.
Walking these streets, camera in hand, there are no rocks left unturned. Where we visited next would have a profound effect on both of us, challenging our perspectives and ideas like nothing else before. I've only been to 2 funerals in my life. I remember my grandpa's well. A solemn day, full of grief. All black ties and grey skies. That's what I know about funerals.
Sweet.
Yeah. Too big for this car.
These taxis are tiny, but it makes a lot of sense.
Because the roads are narrow.
So, we can't even... There we go. We are on the way to a temple, which I can't pronounce. I'm just going to put the name here. How do you say the name of this temple? How do you say the name of the temple? It's...
Pashupatinath Temple.
Okay, there we go. So that's where we're heading. This is a holy temple for Hindus, and this is somewhere that they cremate their dead.
Sat in that taxi, it was clear we really didn't know what we were letting ourselves in for.
So, this is where they
Cremate people.
cremate people.
Over 1,000 years old, the Pashupatinath Temple is one of the most sacred temples of Hinduism. Sat on the banks of the Bagmati River that eventually reaches the holy river Ganges, it's believed that this water has the power to purify the soul. To say we felt uncomfortable was an understatement.
I think they're burning someone right now.
Yeah, I think so.
It's quite a strange concept, isn't it, to sort of rock up and like with our cameras and it's like, hey.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know if I'd want to photograph a funeral in the UK.
Yeah.
Without asking.
Yeah, especially if you don't know anyone. Like, we just come down here with our cameras and we're like, what's up?
Tourism, voyeuristic. Yeah. It was a bit of a deer in the headlights moment. I think I felt slightly uncomfortable throughout the whole evening, I would say, but like mostly at the beginning, and then kind of eased off as we went along. But it was less to do with being around the general situation and death, and more like I felt like I shouldn't be in that space without being invited in, and trying to figure out a way, whether we even should take the cameras out at all, and like if we did, then what was like kind of appropriate to photograph and how much distance. And it's a very intimate part of somebody's life to be around one of their loved ones who's passed away, and you obviously want to show that some respect.
As two men who've lived the majority of their lives in the UK, this was all very, very different for us. On the temple steps leading down to the river, families and friends lay the bodies of their loved ones. Gently, lovingly, they unwrap the feet and head to wash them with the holy water from the river. This cleanses and purifies the body, removing any sins. Marigold flowers and orange sheets are then laid to show respect and support to the deceased in their journey to the afterlife. And then, the body is carried solemnly along the river to the pyres. In Hinduism, it's believed that the body is just a vessel for the soul. Cremation releases the soul, allowing it to move on and be reborn into a new body. The fire itself has the power to purify a soul, removing any negative karma that the person may have accumulated during their lifetime. As the ashes float away down the Bagmati, the soul departs and heads off to be reborn once more. There's a strange peace here. It's not sad, nor happy. Contemplative, perhaps.
We are just sat on these sort of steps where everyone else is sat. People just come and sit. People just standing around, chatting, and then cremation happening right there. It's quite strange, isn't it?
Yeah, and the atmosphere is not really that sad.
It's not somber at all. I don't think it's that. It's more like it seems almost social, like people are just gathered peacefully.
It's not exactly happy, is it? But it's like
no,
it's not somber either.
It's not a celebration.
People chat and murmur, paying their respects and wishing the departing soul well. Walking along the river, we were drawn over the bridge by the sound of a ritual beginning. This is Aarti, a devotional ritual where light is offered to the deities. The music and chanting rouses the crowd in reverence and gratitude. Everywhere I look, there are people somewhat hypnotised and enthralled by the dancers with their flickering lamps and incense. I had never seen anything like this before. To be there on the banks of the river Bagmati at this holiest of Hindu temples, it's an honour. It's an experience you don't forget. this is why I travel. To put myself outside of my comfort zone and to experience and see totally new cultures that challenge me. You know, just to understand the world a little bit better. Before we had even left the city, I had fallen in love with this country. Memories of Kathmandu are filled with joy, rattling around in tiny taxis, squeezing down impossibly narrow alleyways, finding places to eat.
Yes. Nice. It looks ridiculously good and it costs like £2 for 2 quid. Cheers.
And places to drink.
Kathmandu. I can't believe it, mate.
It's hard to express how happy I was getting to spend this valuable time with one of my best mates after so long. Everything was new and fresh. A grand adventure had begun. I sometimes wonder if we might have whiled away our whole trip deep in the bars and soaring high on the rooftops of Kathmandu.
What a good sound.
But we had a trek to begin.
We've been in Kathmandu for a few days now and not bad sunset for the last evening, but we're about to go and trek through the Annapurna Circuit for about 17 days.
What?
I'm super cut this together.
You're joking me? Oh my god.
Brought your walking shoes?
No. Really?
Next time, in Notes from Nepal.
I think we're on the move again.
We catch the bus from Kathmandu.
This is what you need the day before starting a 17-day trek.
And journey into the foothills of the Himalaya, where we begin our 80-mile trek around the Annapurna Circuit.
We're only less than 1 hour in, and the views are already just, yeah, you just know this is going to be an epic 17 days.